Okay, so I saw something on Instagram that stuck with me probably a year ago. Like I don't know how I got it, but it's sort of along these lines, and it was like basically said that there's tremendous benefits in a grandparent moving in and living with grandchildren. So it would be like um if my mom and dad's like my grandparents, the one that let's say the one that I talked about, they live in the apartment. If they needed to look at moving into a home, or even if they didn't, even if just like today, they just my parents were like, "Yeah, you can move in with us." That's not a great example because my mom's kids are all out of the house. But
Yeah.
like, what if I like let them move in with us or something?
Right, like let's say Steve and Lisa are like 20 years older right now, and they're like, "Hey, can we
Yeah,
come live with you
yeah.
in Washington?" Yeah, yeah.
Well, and I actually talked with Alex about this,
Hmm.
and we talked about her parents and my parents, and I don't remember where we landed with every single scenario, but we did say that my mom and dad, Steve and Lisa, would be welcome to live with us. And so there's supposedly benefits for the grandchildren and also for the grandparents.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that's like an alternative that um, you've ever thought about or you've compared with like your situation, but do you have any thoughts on that? Have you heard of that being a thing, or what do
Yeah.
you think about that?
No, I totally do. I That's a really cool topic you brought up. So I'm gonna go really broad real quick, and this is what's fascinating to me. The United States of America is the only ones that have really that have so much business investment in retirement living. I mean, you go overseas to Europe, Japan, Germany, you can go any other country, you will not find an independent living community with amenities. They're just now getting to Europe. We were at a conference a couple years ago, and a British gentleman stood up, and he is in London, and they're opening the first independent living community there. They're just now starting that. The United States of America are like the only ones doing that. So what are those people doing? Well, they're living with their grandparents or their kids or whatever. And I think it's such an interesting thing because at work, this is naughty, but we call it the kid in the basement. We don't see it as mom living with them. We see it as the kid living with mom still. And and it's kind of a negative way to look at it, but unfortunately, some of the situations I have come across, how do I put this delicately? I just see I've seen it where the parents maybe are taking advantage of a little bit. Uh, Sometimes there is a adult child who has their own issues and can't leave home, and I've seen it where the mom and dad in their 80s are still taking care of. Almost, I'm cooking and doing laundry for this 50-year-old son who has no issues and doesn't work. I've seen those, and I have also seen the side of where it does work, where um, mom moves in with the daughter, and I think it can work. I think it can. Totally dependent on personalities. Totally dependent on personalities. Um,
Yeah.
Gosh, I mean, just like I'm trying to find a good example in my head. So there was okay, here's a nice one. So I had a lady who moved in with us a couple years ago, and she lived with her granddaughter. Her granddaughter had 7 children. Grandma was being more of a caretaker for those grandkids than she could do anymore, or
Yeah.
and it felt like from my perspective she was caretaking more than she was being taken care of, and she's 92, like um and so i I think ultimately, though, I think it's just dependent on personalities and what's important to you, because still, uh, in this economy, one spouse working is kind of a hard household. A lot of the times you're needing two incomes to make a household work. um, And so both of them are at work, and then grandma's stuck at home alone. Okay, so what is grandma getting out of living with you? And it's also still finding what's important to grandma. Is it helping take care of the house with them? Like I have okay, I have a mom who lives on a farm, and her son is a farmer, so he's busting butt all day, comes home for lunch that is made by mom, and eats lunch, and he leaves, and she starts making dinner and cleaning up the house. You know,
Yeah.
but it works. It's kind of like a transactional relationship in a way, but um, a lot of the times though, I have seen it too, where they just get to a point where they just can't be taken care of at home anymore. And, you're on top of you wanting to be a human, still needing to be a human being, having a social life and not having to take care of mom anymore from a child's perspective. You need to also think about, can I take care of mom and get her what she needs in her everyday life? That's such an important thing. I mean, if you were like, if you're 37, wouldn't you want to, I don't know what age bracket you hang out with, but I would assume you'd want to hang out with people around your age who relate to you more, who also have kids who can relate to you, or going through the same troubles you're going through. You want that at that age too. I mean, hanging out with your daughter all day playing cards, and you know everything about your daughter, so totally dependent on personality, but I think there's just so much value in a community setting.
Man, those are really good points.
Yeah. I've seen
Because
a
like
lot,
going
man.
over
I've seen a lot. I tell you what.